Good deal. And aren't we thankful for mothers and all that they do for us? So again, thank you for being here for Mother's Day weekend. We don't want to take a lot of your time today. I know that your families are here. Some of you may be going to eat and do different things. And it's a time that we've been able to celebrate, sing together, and to be able to worship and have a baby dedication that we'll be doing at all of our services. But I do want to take just a few moments for us to be reminded, to reflect on a couple of things. I got up this morning and was thinking about the service today and thinking about all the different people that would be here, that would be watching online, or be in different churches across our community. And there's different people that are in different seasons. Some of you may be reflecting back today, and you reflect back on your mother, and you're at a season where your mother's already passed. And you're in a place, maybe you're reflecting back on her love and reflecting back on who she was, and you just long to have that one more moment that you could talk to her. I get that. Others of you, it may be distance of traveling or where they're located, and maybe you don't get to see them much. Some of you will get to see your mothers today. I know there's some in here that long to be mothers. We have some in our church right now that are expecting mothers, that are waiting for that special day, for the delivery. And then I also know that there's some mothers in here who are broken, who are hurting. Perhaps as a mother over the loss of a child. Or in some instances, even within our church recently, grandchildren. And so I know that people are in different places. And even this weekend, this past week's been a very difficult week. I've visited a lot of people. Some people that's even here this morning and part of our family here as a church. This past week, I think we shared last Sunday perhaps, even though I was over in Douglas, we had a teenager who came to our church and she passed away in a car accident at the age of 17. And Lloyd, as her father, he's here this morning. And Kenny and Lucy, grandparents, here as well, back here worshiping. But it was a very difficult week. As a mother or a grandmother, even as a father, over the loss of a teenager. This weekend, I was at the hospital. We have an individual who was here last Sunday, 24 years old. Right now, as we speak, he's in ICU and it doesn't look good. And his grandmother is broken. I talked to her last week. They were here. They come here every Sunday. And is broken over the situation that they're in. I was in the hospital this weekend also visiting with a sick mom who was up in the hospital, and her daughter was with her, and she was sick. And spent a couple of days up there. So a lot of people in a lot of different seasons, different places in life. And here's what I know. As I look back at my own family, I know that life is short. God gives us a specific amount of time we have with our family. Whether it's 17 years, 24 years, 60 years, however long it may be. And with that time, we don't need to take it for granted. I was reflecting back, two of my boys are up here on the front row. One of them's 10, one of them is 7. I was thinking, man, Braden's 10. I'm over halfway. We've had him longer than we'll have him. Now, if it was up to my wife, it'd be like, no, he's going to ABAC. He's staying right here for another 15 years. He ain't leaving, Some of you can testify to that. You're like, no, don't think 18 is over. But thinking back on his age and how old he is and my kids and how continual process of that is going, life is short. None of us are promised another day. And so all I want to take is just a moment for Mother's Day weekend for us just to be reminded, no matter what season of life you're in, to to be reminded of a couple of things. One, that life is short, so don't take it for granted. Don't take time with your family for granted. When you leave here today, make those phone calls. If you're going to have dinner, lunch, whatever your plans are, be sure to tell those people that are close to you that you love them, because life is short. And also, realizing that life is short, that we would hunger and thirst after the right things. Things that'll last. Not things that will pass, but things that will carry on with us in eternity. As this week we were at Malia's funeral, and I was thinking, she had a beautiful voice. They were letting me hear some of the songs that she had been singing, and thinking about her life and how God had blessed her with a beautiful voice. And I was telling them, she's not dead. She's more alive now than she's ever been with Christ. In fact, last week I shared this story. My little girl was staying with her grandparents with her grandparents, Brittany's parents, and we were getting some stuff ready for the yard sale, and they sent us a video, and Bentley was saying on the video, "Yeah, my mom and dad are old, like they are old," and it's talking about how old we are, and so they're Gigi and Pop asked them, "Well, how do you know they're old? You know those wrinkles on your eyes and your fingers, and they're just old. I mean, they're just sitting there telling them on this video that we get." And then the boys are like, "Yeah, when you get old, you die." And here's what Bentley said. Bentley looked at him and said, "They're not going to die. They'll just change." And her perspective of that is they're not going to die. They'll just change, because they'll change from being here to being with Jesus. And that's the hope that we have. And so there's a verse in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 6 that says this, that blessed are those who hunger and what? Thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And so to be reminded on Mother's Day weekend, to be reminded as we reflect back on families, that we should hunger and thirst for righteousness so that we can be filled. And so my question is this: what do you have a hunger for? As a mom, as a dad, as a family, what is it that you're hungry for in your home? What is it that you long for? And if we're honest, we could probably all reflect and ask our kids that, and reflect as a family and say, what is it that we really hunger for and thirst for? Is it things that are righteousness? Is it the things of God that we prepare our hearts? Because here's the thing, if we pursue God and His righteousness and start seeking after Him, suddenly you'll begin to see the benefits of walking with Him. And you're being led by the Spirit and empowered by His presence. And suddenly you'll long for Him more and more and more, and less for the junk in this world. I realize that more and more with dieting, with trying to eat the right things and make the wise choices with that. And the more you do the right thing, the less you'll want to do the wrong thing. And so we have to prepare our hearts. So why don't more people hunger and thirst for righteousness? And this is especially for the parents in here. Listen to me for just a moment. We've taught this principle before, but I want to refresh. Why is it that many do not hunger and thirst for righteousness when we're raising up our families? These are things we need to be reminded of. What doesn't work? 2 things I'll give you. One is this: legalistic Christianity doesn't work. What does that mean? It means when we give just the rules, right? Don't drink, smoke, or chew, or date the girls that do, right? Don't do that. We give all these legalistic rules. Well, here's what we need to be reminded of. And I learned this more and more as I learned the different characteristics of my kids. They all learn differently. Braden and Briggs here on the front row learn differently. They respond differently. And I have to gauge that and have wisdom and understanding how they learn, and each one of my kids, how they function through that. Just like teaching or anything else, you learn how different kids learn different ways or respond to things different ways, and you have to walk through that. But here's the problem with legalistic Christianity, is this: rules without relationship always lead to rebellion. In other words, parents, if all we do is give rules and provide no relationship, it will lead to rebellion. With our walk with Christ, if all you do is give them rules without relationship, it leads to what? To rebellion. We need to be reminded of that. Not only legalistic Christianity, but then cultural Christianity. We need to be guarded against cultural Christianity. There's a guy by the name of Craig Rochelle that wrote this book. It's called Practical Atheist. And what he refers to there is basically cultural Christianity. And cultural Christianity is this, is believing in God, but living as if He does not exist. To say that our family believes in God, but then we live our lives as if God does not exist. There's a biblical word there, it's called lukewarm. Or also hypocrisy. That we have to guard against as families. Especially because our time is short. And so what does work? What will work? If cultural Christianity, if legalistic Christianity, if those things are things we need to guard against, then what does work? And it's this, to not strive to be a Christian home, but to strive to be a Christ-centered home. In other words, Jesus is not just part of our family, He's the center of our family. It's not that Jesus is part of what we do, but He's the center of everything that we do. It's being able to lead from Christ being in the center, not from Christ just being on the side as part. And so we have to be reminded of that He's not just part, but He is the center. Psalm 63 verse 1 says, "You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water." To thirst and hunger after righteousness. It's a discipline. Look to the person beside you, say, it takes discipline. Go ahead, tell them, it takes discipline, right? It does with anything. If you're going to eat healthy, it's discipline. If you're going to make the wise choice, it's discipline. If you're going to do the right things, go to the right places, it's discipline. It's rejecting what the flesh wants us to do and allowing Christ to be the center of everything. And what we have to do is this, and just as you spend time with your family, and for those parents that are in here, we have to get to a point where we lead our family to see God as loving, as approachable, and as involved. Because children are looking for love, acceptance, and involvement. And we need to be able to provide and show that God is loving, that God is approachable, and that God is involved in our lives. And He's involved in your life. And there's 3 ways to generate that. To teach loving, to teach that He's approachable, and to be involved. There's 3 things that we have to do, and I'm finished. This is just a reflection. Be sure that God is part of your daily conversation. Don't allow Sundays to be the only time that you bring up anything about God. God should be a part of a daily conversation that you have with your kids. Not only that, but be sure that church is non-negotiable. We just taught this principle not too long ago. Don't let everything else beat out church on Sundays. Make church non-negotiable, that it's a part of life. And then the last one is this, is demonstrate how seeking and serving God is what? Is fun. Look to someone beside you and say, you need to have some fun. Go ahead, tell somebody, you need to have some fun. When you leave here today, you need to have some fun. Whatever it needs, you need to have fun. Because God designed us to have fun. He designed us to enjoy life. He designed us to have a good time with our family and with our friends. But in all of that, we need to be sure that God's part of our daily conversations, that church is non-negotiable. We teach our kids about God's love. We show that He's approachable, that we can come to Him with our hurt, with our brokenness. We can come to Him with our concerns, with all of those things, and He's there listening, and that He is involved in our lives. And we can trust Him with everything. But it's a choice, right? Joshua 24, verse 15. Then choose for yourselves this day who you will serve, but as for me and my house, we'll serve who? We'll serve the Lord. So be reminded that hunger and thirst after righteousness is a choice. It doesn't just happen. Your kids turning out good doesn't just happen. Your kids turning out godly doesn't just happen. It's a choice. It's a discipline. It's work. Some of you go, I know, tell me all about it. I'm right in the middle of it. It's work. In fact, if your kid's sitting in here, look at them and say, you are a lot of work. Go ahead, tell them, you are a lot of work. A lot of work. But with God's help, He'll help us through.